Oh, it's green. Green means good. Okay, so yeah, so we were elected, and we're like, we're going to join these clubs. We're going to have a big old pool of money. We can start doing better competitions, better events, and that kind of thing. So that's what we did. We elected the first ever RITSEC e-board last year, and that election took like 6 hours, so it's nothing new. So we started off strong. We didn't even have a name when we elected. We were going to do with a bunch of things with hackers, but anything that had hackers in the name, the school was like, no. So we had to settle for RITSEC. So this year was a lot of like new stuff. We were just figuring things out. It was completely uncharted territory. We didn't know what we were doing. So there was a lot of things that just could have been better, but we were just kind of discovering as we go. So, but now that we've gotten a lot of the preliminary groundwork done, hopefully the club can just go on an uphill improvement from here on out. So hit me with the next. Yeah, no. All right, so RIT, or Sparshot and RC3 were under the student government. RITSEC is not. That was one of the big changes. We officially are part of the CSEC department now. There's a bunch of reasons for this. Financially, it was a lot better. We're often just buying large amounts of equipment and servers and shirts and stuff on shorter notices. That didn't really flow well with the money flow of the student government. And while student government's really good for clubs that are bringing in like $40 a year, it's not quite good for people who are running competitions like ISDS. So we get our own credit card with our own limit, things like that. It improves our relationship with the department, so they help us out with a lot of things. They can help us book rooms. We can do outreach for them. We just get a lot of things. So there's a lot of benefits to that. So officially when people ask, like, hey, I don't see RITSEC listed under the student government clubs, we're not a student government club. We are a CSEC department entity. We're still involved with like the student government senator and everything, and we still get to do stuff with the Jesus clubs. We just have to be a little more proactive in reaching out to them to like get a booth at an event or something if we so want to do that. But yeah, so that's kind of one of the big things. That's the foundation of the new club. We want to move more. All right, the Constitution. So I'm going to pass this off to some of the other people who are more involved, but this is one of the big things that we also did was writing the Constitution. Who wants to take this slide? Who put this slide there? A bunch of people. All right, Jack, take it away.
One of the big new things about the Constitution is the independent programs. So instead of just having interest groups, we made a more abstract thing to manage all of our different things we do, like red team mentorship and then the interest groups as a whole. So that gives them a lot more freedom to kind of do what they need. The nice thing is that when you want to start a new one, you have to amend it into the Constitution. So if you're starting an independent program, this is something that's going to continue to happen. If it doesn't happen, there's going to be a problem. We moved to ranked choice voting this year. Mr. Nick O'Brien was very excited.
I think it went well, too.
Yes. I was a big fan. And that resulted in much more democratic elections because you're able to vote for who you want in order of who you want rather than having to make a decision one way or the other. The Constitution is available on GitHub in LaTeX, which means that modifying it is really easy. And if you go to the GitHub page, you can go to releases, and you can pull down the PDF format. The latest version of the Constitution is not compiled yet because we haven't merged the pull request. Speaking of which, 2 CAs. We have 2 CAs now, which means that we're going to be electing an IRSEC and CTFCA. They will manage those 2 competitions. I will be the Hackathon and ISTSCA, so I'll manage those 2. And the hope is to elect that second CA very soon so that we can get them going.
Ooh, this one's me.
Have fun.
All right.
Another big change was the switch to workplace. Yeah. It actually, some people's feelings got upset, but it's turned out pretty well. And we've had a lot of activity in workplace. A lot. We got some analytics here. Right up here, you get to see how active people are week to week. And we're currently averaging about 10,000 messages sent over a course of 12 days, which is pretty insane. If any of you remember the days of the RC3 Slack, that we were hitting 10,000 messages in about 21 days. So we're really picking up the pace. Right now, I'm working on a script to work with the Workplace API, and we're gonna get some more data on like how many messages are sent every day, and like how often people are posting in groups. Not specific to like people, but just this day, this many messages were posted, this many reactions were hit. Because going through and highlighting, like hovering over a bar and manually typing that into an Excel spreadsheet is really upsetting. Yeah, but once I get that done, that script, hopefully I'll give a talk on the Facebook Graph API. Ugh. Oh, pizza? Let's talk about pizza.
Hello, we switched pizzas because everyone was complaining. We now get Tony Pepperoni because I get a 10% off discount. I hate their customer service, but I do it for you. So, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, this is you.
This is me. So this year we started the mentorship program, and it was fucking awesome. We had 55 mentees, which is about half of an incoming class, 20 mentors, and oh my god, I was really overwhelmed by that. Going into it, I thought we would have maybe 5 groups total, so like 20 mentees maybe. It was way far and above what I expected, and it overwhelmed me, and that was one of the biggest problems this year. So next year, we'll be starting again in the fall. We're looking for mentors and people who want to help manage the mentorship groups, and if you're interested in being a mentee, that's also awesome. I'll hopefully have out sign-up forms or applications out soon so you guys can start signing up, because I would really love your help. That's about it. Oh. Social events? We did a heckin' lot of them. This semester, we had one social event every other weekend, basically, including our competitions, which was awesome. I was super pleased with that. Everyone really enjoyed the barbecue, so I'd like to see that come back next year. Movie nights were fun, game nights. I've heard some people maybe want to play something that's not Halo, which is pretty fair. I'm on board. Yeah, let's do it. And then we went to ShmooCon. We sent about 30 people down. Let's send even more next year. Education. Who's educating people? Wow, Scott and I. Educators.
Oh, that's
okay.
Yeah, who changed it?
Yeah, I think Shannon changed it.
Okay. So, the cool portion of RITSEC, the education. Yeah. Oh, wow, is right. Yeah, we are. Everyone loves education. You guys got to learn, and, this semester we really tried to get in, specific people that were really experts on the subject that we were teaching. So, like for Linux, for Red Team Linux, we had Micah come in. For Windows, I wouldn't consider myself an expert matter, but I know a decent amount, so I tried to talk to it. For networking, we had Wiseman come in. I thought it was great, and that went really well. And for the demos,
Yeah, so scoring eventually worked. We were going to have a lot of stats here, but the issue was all of the stats are through some Google Forms, a flag site that crashed, and then a flag site that worked. So we didn't actually get those all compiled, but I think for the first week's demo, we had something like 50-ish people do a majority of the first week's demo, and by the end, we still had 20 to 30 overall on the leaderboard, which is actually a very large number for the amount of people doing them. So I thought it went pretty well.
definitely like a lot, some growing pains with the demos and education, just due to the fact that we were coming from pretty much no infrastructure with the scoring engine and everything. So we kind of had to improvise and really work with what we had. But I think overall it went pretty well. So yeah, thank you guys for participating and listening to my Windows talks and just participating in education. We appreciate it.
And
What's
downloading the Windows VM.
Yeah,
too,
that
which
was honestly, you guys are troopers.
gigs.
Zach, you have a question?
Yes.
No, the projectors raid my eyes, and I couldn't see otherwise. So I'm wearing these for protection. Yes, thanks.
Where did I go?
4?
Wait.
Did we miss a slide?
Oh, no. Oh, hey,
Oh,
somebody double
wow.
clicked.
I
There you go.
double-clicked.
Hello.
Oh, is that our handheld microphone now?
Yes, this is our handheld microphone. So, it is the research section that I am in charge of. So we have some interesting little stats here. We had 52 people overall present, so that's pretty freaking cool. How about we have a little bit of a happiness for that? We had on average 60 people show up every single week this semester for the research section. That's people that signed in during the research section, 60 people, which is a pretty solid number. It was similar for education. Those numbers are increased from previous years. So if any of you remember, because like last year with Sparsa in this room at this time, wouldn't have this many people. We had 83 total presentations that were completed. The top presentation by YouTube views is Newman's LaTeX Talk with 1,200 views. And then the top presentation in our hearts is all of them, because all of you worked extremely hard, and it was super awesome that you presented. So there you go. And that's all I got.
Oh, yeah. Competitions. So we did the CTF in the fall. We had a lot of people. Our infrastructure was over-engineered to all heck, but it handled it great. We're really excited. Huh? What? Keep going? Okay. Okay. So the CTF, that was a lot of fun. We still have people posting in our CTF Discord, which is great to see one of those notifications. Really looking forward to it again next year, Jack. And we had some people on the plane back from CCDC, some UVA people who were talking. They enjoyed it, and they're going to do it again. So that's cool. ISTS, 13 teams, a lot of people, a lot of fun, not a lot of sleep. We have a promo video now, too, for ISTS, and it is, well, it's a picture, but it's a picture of the video, and it is dope AF, let me tell you.
Not even sneak peek, whole thing. Whole thing will be seen on Tuesday at the movie night. Where's Ian? There we go.
You heard it here first. Tuesday, movie night, world premiere. So ISTS, that was a lot of fun. IRSEC had 11 teams. We had 14 red teamers? Really? Oh, wow. One infra that was, it did its best, you know? Hey, we did it. It chugged along. But that was still quite a bit of fun. The theme was pretty dope, if you ask me. And then the hackathon, new thing this year, that was pretty cool. 35 people at 6, and still a good amount of people stayed overnight. We're going to do it again this fall.
Yeah, the 9?
Yeah?
Strong.
Yeah. All right. So see you guys back again in September for that hackathon. Note the date has changed. Same place, same time, though. Don't change the channel. Sponsors.
Hello. Yeah, so we had a total over fall and spring of 14 sponsors. You can see all of them noted on the right here because they're wonderful and amazing. So we had 5 new ones who have never sponsored a security club here at RIT before, so that was pretty cool. We had 4 come to IRSEC. We had 4 on the ISTS red team, and we had 10 total at ISTS, so they were all there looking at all of you, seeing what you were doing. And then we are now at Palo Alto Academy School, so they always give us a bunch of virtual licenses we can play around with now. And they're all just super great. We had, I think, 4 or 5 sponsor talks that were pretty cool. I enjoyed a lot of them. And yeah, so they're just doing cool things. We couldn't do it without them. It's pretty great. Oh, okay, I was
Anything
last.
for us? This is the last time, I think, all of eBoard is we're changing over here. This is the last week, so you're going to have 6 new people, I think, and there's 3 returning people, but any questions for us? Any thoughts?
Oh, thank you.
We love you, Ivor. Not in the form of a question. Next.
We love you. Thank you.
We really try our best. We put a lot of time and effort into this, and we love it when you all help out and give talks and white team and do all the fun stuff. So we couldn't do it without you guys, and we do it for you guys. So it's been fun. It's been a wild ride. Hector.
fall 2020.
All the designs are like locked in.
You can apparently go down to the dean's office and ask to see the
Or both. Or one of the two. They held them. They hold it tight to their chest. However, you ask them, they'll show you. But they won't post it anywhere. But if you ask, they will show you. It's a very weird dynamic.
Yes, Kat.
That would be fantastic, but then they go like.
They go, no, this is mine.
We have some pictures, some mock-ups that we posted before, but
It's gonna be cool. The club's gonna get its own space. That's not a closet, so
Mhm.
that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's basically going to be very similar to like what the SSE has, but like, better.
We're gonna have an actual server room, so you won't hear that annoying all the time.
Yeah, and we still get full access because it's a security building and we're part of the security department. We get access to the labs, the auditorium, so we'll like host the meetings in the auditorium and everything. We'll still have competitions and everything there.
We're getting a super dope room to host ISTS in that's not the size of Fishbowl, so it'll be bigger.
this is a good question. There's been a lot of confusion about this. No.
Only if everyone is wearing their cyber safety goggles. It's a dangerous cyber range. All right. Dad? Okay. Literally just had a talk about Megan with this like 5 minutes ago.
Talk with Megan about that.
Talk about Megan with this.
It's okay.
All right.
words were all there.
So, yeah, you guys are smart enough to figure it out. All right. We have 24-hour labs as far as Campo is concerned and the dean is concerned. As far as Dave Emlyn is concerned, we have 12-hour labs.
Attack from afar.
But this is okay. This is not an RITSEC problem. This is a department problem, and they plan on sorting it out and then come back in the fall, and they want to have like an official, hey, this is the law. This is the word on it. So look forward to that in the fall. Yeah. But just get your buddy to prop open the door with a paper towel and call it a day.
Security.
Don't have Campo lock you out.
Yeah. No.
Never.
Okay. Any other thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? Personally, I am open to criticism. So if you want to message me and like talk about it, that'd be cool. So, I might reply depending on how nice you are. But no,
Constructive criticism.
I want to hear
Let's
how
put
I
that
did.
out
So
there.
I want to hear how I did.
You can also use our
Yeah.
favorite feedback form.
We have the-
feedback.
we have the We have an anonymous feedback form. I haven't checked that in
Some
a
of
while.
us
I'm not
may
gonna lie.
respond with a 301 redirect to Micah, though.
Yeah. So. All right. All right. Thank you all. Yeah, we had a really good year. So here's to another year of RITSEC.
Long live our. No, I'm just kidding. I'm free. And then we
We now start the RITSEC ritual.
Dona nobis requiem. And then we just continue. Alrighty. There you go. Sir. Did we stop recording? Is JC still here? JC? JC is right there. But we can. Kyle first. Kyle,
Are you ready?
you ready to go? Now let's go.
All right, next up on presentations, we have Kyle Schleich. Talking about logging? Question mark? Give it up for Kyle.
I supply my own cables.
Yes, yes. We do need the HDMI.
I supply my own cables.
It's plugged into the thing.
Unless you
Do you have a display for it?
Do you have
Mini display for it? I do. That's why I'm offering.
There you go.
adapters in this?
So we'll swap out. Hopefully this will work. I bet it will.
And I also need a beautiful power cable.
Okay. There we go.
'Cause this room sucks.
Yeah, it's not the greatest. It's all in one. Oh, no, it's separate.
That would be I could bring my dock. I did that for my
When you're done, can you share your presentation and a paragraph description of your project?
I can't give you.
I like the standards.
Okay, we're not doing that right. No? Thank you, boy. I am good.
Good to yourself?
Huh?
All set?
I believe I am all set.
You'll knock it out.
All right.
Don't fuck it up. What? It's just logging, you know? We've never fucked logging up before. Logging always works. Jack, are we good? Yep. All right. Hello, everyone. As we talked about before, there was in fact a competition called RITSEC, and we totally did logging. Everyone, everyone got their logging right, right?
Hey guys, quiet down.
Turns out, none of you actually got to see your logs. Sad react. So a little bit about me. My name's Kyle Schleich. I am in fact from the cold land of Rochester. Things I do is Android reversing and man in the middle, and then occasionally I mess around with logs. So some random facts about the competition is red team had far less logs than me. I'm sorry, guys. Each team individually had about 120,000 events logged, and red team got a little drunk and decided to double that. I don't know what you were doing, Team 9, but apparently it was not getting rid of all of red team's tools. So some of the most used commands, this is specifically for Team 9, but it was pretty much the same across the board. You had a nice little fun Etsy fonts that decided that it wanted to be in your config file for SSH about 100,000 times. So probably not supposed to be there, but sadly, you didn't get to see the logs, so you didn't get to see that. Now, real quick before I go into anything else, what happened? You can read that, but pretty much we have no idea. For me, it worked the whole time. For you guys, in theory, it worked before the competition, and it works right now. So why it didn't work during the competition, we really have no idea. Except it did work for some teams. So again, weird. But it's actually kind of a good thing it didn't work because OS query was running while red team deployed. Which means we got to see everything red team did. So one of the really more simple things that red team does is they like to shim a lot of the binaries. So if you look to the right, which we can do a fancy little laser thing. If you look over here, right there, you'll see them running the command to just move Vim somewhere else, which I believe Nicholas can hint on. MD6 sum, that's solid cryptography right there, right? Yeah. And then over here you can see this is what it actually was. So in general, if it doesn't hit a specific argument, it'll just run Vim in theory. But if there's certain things in it, it'll actually run this separate thing, or you'll look at this separate thing, which is effectively just binary data. Now, red team doesn't really want me to just be like, hey, here's all the shims. So we're going to have to go do some other stuff. So this is one of the service files they had, which was dbus checker. This ran also about 40,000 times over the span of the competition. So yeah, pretty aggressive. And you can see here, this is what's actually running. A little bit of Python, which, by the way, fgets is not Python. That's C. That's a function in C. So the fact that it's a binary, a little suspicious. And then, yeah, this is just the service, which apparently is cleaning the repositories. As someone who is a little bit of a apt fan, personally, there is no clean repository. They're never clean. And again, red team doesn't really want me to just go and throw out all the services. So we're not going to show it. But did anyone find the cron tab? No? Oh. So it wasn't actually cron tab. It was a service. And it was, in fact, the thing that ran 100,000 times. And then Micah's favorite tool, Detcord. Fun fact, every time he runs Detcord, it has this little thing called Det prompt that shows up. So you can see anything that was installed with Detcord by just looking up Det prompt. Now, for those of you at UB, if they have logging, this will not work. As soon as I told Micah about this, about 5 minutes later, that was patched out. Detcord is also open source, so you can see the patch. And then another thing we can see is good old red team asking blue team, did you guys change your password? Because it's a good thing to change your passwords. I was going to do some Pam stuff, but again, red team's actually just a bunch of happy kittens that want to be hugged. They're really not mean. Definitely not Cersei Lannister. So last thing I'll show for what red team did is rage quit. Rage quit, I believe, is a tool that Jim made based on this C users Jim in Linux. So they showed this off in the red team presentation. Personally, I actually kind of don't want to rage quit when I see it because, everyone loves Smash Mouth. But fun fact, don't actually just try and run it, as I believe what it ends up doing is just running the command in the terminal. So everything it prints out, it tries running, and it gets a little angry eventually. So some takeaways for me as a person that was black teaming for logging is, first off, you can't turn logging on before red team deploys. You just can't do it. It's so easy to see what they pre-bake that you just absolutely have to have it turned off. Context is still very important. I started this presentation without actually going into the boxes and realized that there was no way I could actually do it without going into the box and actually seeing what the different files were and what they were doing. And the process event is pretty much the only thing that was actually useful from the giant OS query config that I had made, that Nick and me sat down and were like, this is OP, this is OP, and this is OP. All of those were useless. There was one that would show IP tables changing, except Docker likes to change IP tables a lot, which meant not very useful. Other things that weren't really useful were snapshots for different, just generally different files, because all it would say, file modified. And it wouldn't say when it was modified, it just said it was modified for the next week. Not super useful, because it wasn't changing after the competition. So if any blue teamers are in here and specifically want me to look something up, I can do that, as Splunk is still up for probably another day. Otherwise, any other questions? Yes, Micah? You can comment.
Kyle, search for this string. I get 20,000 results of like random stuff. Like literally everything is in there. So logging is one of the most important takeaways you can do, and it's very real world.
Yeah, that actually brings something up. Is originally this was going to be named something about out of scope, as we've kind of had a challenge of making sure logging was out of scope over the past few years. But red team this year literally attacked nothing that would affect logging. From the host machines to Splunk itself to everything in between, nothing was attacked that should have stopped logging, and yet, sadly, we still didn't have it this year.
So was the blue team's fault?
No, because after the competition, it still worked. And I know I didn't change anything. So, other than Team 11, that CCDC team was like, I'm going to firewall off Splunk just so Kyle can't see it. They're so mean. All right, that's all. Thank you for allowing me to present.
Uh, there's just so many options. I'm not going to be able to go over it all today, but it's just kind of showing you guys what the capabilities are and how you can learn about it more. So write commands. So like if you want to patch something, I got a pretty good example of that. So let's say you're doing an CTF challenge. This is one from Pico CTF. So spoiler alert. I'm sorry about this. If we look at this particular at this particular binary, just to run it, just so you guys get an idea, you can see the output there. At the bottom there, it basically is calculating a key, but says you need a faster machine to get the flag, right? And that's basically just because of this set timer here, right? So theoretically, if we get rid of this set timer, we can get it to print the flag, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reopen this in write mode. So that's a dash W when you're opening a file. We're going to do our analysis. This is just kind of helpful for like defining all the functions. If I don't do this, it's not going to know where each function starts. So we'll seek to main. We'll look at this again. We know that we basically want to get rid of this call, right? So let's try knopping it out. I'll show you how to do that in Radar real quick. So this is the address where that call is. So what we're going to do is a write, I believe assembly. And then if we do a WAI, it'll not only overwrite the assembly, but if there's like a gap there, it's going to fill the gap with nops. So what we're going to do is write assembly and fill with nops if it doesn't fit. We're going to write a nop, and we're going to write it at that address with that call. So there you go. It's written that byte. We do PDF. We can see that it's not there anymore. And then if we decide to run that again in my handy dandy Docker container, it's gonna print the flag, right? So that's pretty cool. The yank command is really nice for like copy and pasting. So like if let's say you can do /m, and that's gonna give you basically all the magic headers it finds in this file. Hold up. Let's not do that one. So yeah, for this one, we can see that there's multiple Mako binaries in this binary, and we can use like the yank command to kind of copy bytes from the binary into our clipboard and kind of paste that out into another file. The search commands, I was just demonstrating that, the /. So you can, I did a /m, so basically search for magic bytes indicating that there's a file there. That's really good for like file carving. But there's a bunch of stuff here. You can search for bytes. You can search for specific instructions. You can search for a string. You can search for a specific ASCII string. You can also even search for ROP gadgets. We'll have an example of that later, and I'll show you how that's even better in the GUI that comes with Radari too. Okay. So yeah, and we also have configuration commands. So if you press E, hold up. If you press E, you'll basically get all the available like configurations that you can set in Radari 2, and there's a lot. Again, I can't go over them all, but like a few that are like really useful. So what I usually do, this is my Radari 2 configuration file. It's basically just in home. It's a hidden file in your home folder. And basically, this is pretty basic stuff. This is like show comments on the right of this assembly instead of like above an instruction. This particular options makes it so it shows the pseudocode in assembly. So if there's something like move EAX string, it will just say EAX equals string. ECO is for like setting like the color theme. So right now I have it on solarized because that's what I like. And I just have UTF-8 to true. I'll show you some examples of some more options later. You can do things like set the architecture differently. There's really a bunch you can do. So kind of some analysis commands. So like for searching data references, so the A branch of the A branch of instructions is all like analysis commands, and you kind of noticed me a lot. I was doing AA and I was doing AAA. Basically, it kind of says it right there. The only difference is that AA is basically gonna analyze the function at the entry point, and it's gonna analyze it recursively. So if it determines that there's any functions it calls, it'll analyze those functions and kind of determine like what the arguments are and whatnot. If we do 3As, which is kind of like the typical, like whenever anyone starts with RE2 and opens up a file, they're going to do 3As. It's going to analyze function calls. It's going to try to figure out their calling convention. It's going to analyze the length of bytes. You know, kind of everything it says here. Check for V tables. The only difference between 3As and 4As is it does this experimental analysis. And basically what it does is it does finding function prelude. So it's actually going to look for like function prolog, setting up the stack. It's going to look for those and kind of like be like, oh, this is a function here, and it's going to analyze that. Other than that, it also enables constraint types analysis for variables. All that is basically, it's kind of complicated, but it's basically just any constraints for different types. So if later on Radari 2 wants to do some kind of advanced analysis where like emulate some function and can kind of determine what parameters were given to what calls, it's useful to have those constraint types. If you do 5As, it still works. If you do 6As, it still works. If you do 7As. If you do 7As, it says an R2 developer is coming to your place to manually analyze this program, and you have to wait for it. But I don't think they're coming. So AFCF, I don't remember what that does, but we can just figure it out. Oh, it'll tell us the function signature for the current function we're at. And AFN is for like renaming functions. So like if I wanted to rename entry 0 to like main, I could just do analyze function name main at entry 0, and that's going to rename it. So if we do the above command, we'll see that it's changed. And you can see because I called it main, Radari is smart enough to be like, oh, okay, so this is a main function. It should be fed an argc, an argv, and a list of environment variables. So like I mentioned, JSON option available for most commands. In terms of starting up Radari 2, some useful commands is -a is going to run AAA as soon as you start up a Radari 2. 2As is going to do the 4As that we talked about. That's kind of uncommon. You usually don't need to do that. If you do W, it's going to open it in write mode. If you do -D, it's going to open it in debug mode. If you do -N, it's going to open it without loading your Radari 2 configuration file. And something pretty cool that I like doing sometimes, especially if you decide to contribute to Radari 2, something really helpful is, let's say you can start Radari 2 and malloc 512 kilobytes of memory. And basically what that's going to give you is it just gives you an empty memory space to play with. So you could do something like, so let's say I write the hex 55, right? That's, if I'm right, that's push RBP. And so we can kind of like test out new functions, right? So like if we're, like recently I was like addressing an issue in Radari 2 with the AO call. And so this was helpful to kind of just have one function that I could call AO on and kind of see what the output was and do some testing. If you look at the Radari 2 source code, you'll notice that a lot of the testing, that's what they do. They'll open R2, they'll malloc some 128 kilobytes of space, or 128 bytes of space, I should say. And they'll kind of like just write one command to it and kind of analyze that, run commands on it to verify things. Okay, where was I? So cool. So there's also debugger and emulation. I think R2 has its own debugger that they implement, but you can also just use GDB as a backend. If you're ever in a binary and you decide you want to reopen it in debug mode, you can just do DOO. That's something I use often. It didn't work because macOS is dumb. We'll talk about that later. It also uses something. Radari 2 uses something called evaluable strings intermediate language. Basically, it's just an intermediate language that is formatted as strings. I believe. Hold up. Hold up. I think I can give you an example of this. Sorry, I can't select things. So, yeah, so I think we can do, if we PDF this, I think we do ASM, ESOL, which stands for Evaluable Strings Intermediate Language, and we set that to true. Instead of getting this assembly, we'll get the intermediate language. And we can kind of see what that kind of looks like. It's basically the whole idea behind it, at least according to Pancake, is that it's like it's in a string format. It's separated by commas, and basically, it's basically an AST, an abstract syntax tree in the form of a string separated by commas. And basically, the point is that it's very easy to parse. It's very easy to deal with. I think that's kind of a lot of the point of Radari 2 is to make things like simple for the user. So you don't have to know these crazy, you don't have to learn this syntax. It's not that hard to learn. You don't have to understand this intermediate language. It's not that difficult. And also I mentioned Unicorn is available as a plugin if you want to do emulation. I talked about the config file. A nice parameter I didn't talk about actually is, and I'll give you an example of this with a Game Boy Advance game. So I've been looking at Game Boy Advance games recently, and I actually don't know ARM, despite the fact that I co-opted Apple. I don't know how ARM works. So when I first got this, I really had trouble. Had to look up each opcode, had to look up what each instruction does. Luckily, Radari 2 comes with an option where you can do asm.describe equals true, and then when you all right, this is not too pretty. Hold up. This is also not too pretty. So as you can kind of see, unfortunately, it's going to the next line, but it gives you a description. Oh, you can't see that too well, actually. Well, it gives you a description of what each instruction does. So if you don't know an architecture, if you don't know the assembly, you can turn on this option, and it'll kind of tell you what each instruction does. So this is kind of helpful, right? If you're new to reverse engineering, you can kind of turn on this option, and you don't necessarily have to look up every opcode to figure out what it does. Okay. So raw run 2 configs. Basically, this allows you to set up the program environment with debugging. The way you use them is when you invoke Radari 2 in debug mode, you're gonna follow it by RA run 2 and then the config file. And there's an example right here. And there's a lot of options. If you want to look at all the options, you can do a man RA run 2, and it'll tell you all the different options that you can put in the config file. But basically, some cool ones. I mean, program, obviously the program name. You can set any argument in on the command line. So arg0 is foo. You can set up the standard in. You can set up a file for standard out. Environment variables, and you can even set up libraries for preloading them. That's only going to work on Linux, OS X, and BSD. That's not going to work on Windows because Windows doesn't really have they don't have a preload environment variable like those other two operating systems do. So to talk about auto analysis, basically the whole AA thing I was talking about earlier. I kind of already went over this, but basically just kind of break down what all the AA commands do. AA is a syllabus for an alias, for analyze function, add sim. So basically any function that has a symbol, it's going to analyze it. It's going to analyze the function at the entry point. And I forget what AFEA does, but we can find out. And AFEA is going to analyze function arguments and locals. So when you do the 3 A's, the next 4 commands are going to be called. So it's going to analyze function calls. It's going to analyze the length. I already mentioned this. And if you do 4 A's, it's going to basically set this configuration variable analysis types constraint to true. So visual mode, I haven't really showcased this yet, but let's get out of here. Let's do this one. You can do VV. And we'll do at main to start viewing at main, and this is going to enter visual mode. Unfortunately, main is not a function. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna view at main, and we can get a graph mode, right? You gotta have graph mode. So there it is. Even when you're on the command line, you can get graph mode by doing 2 capital V's. And I believe if you do EASM, not describe. I'm not sure if this is gonna also show up in graph mode. Oh, but it does. So you can also get the different comments for like explaining each opcode. So that's visual mode. In visual mode, you can like still run commands. So you can press colon, kind of like in Vim, and you can be like AFL, right? So you can, that's pretty cool. By the way, I keep forgetting these things. What was I gonna say? I forgot. All right. Let's talk about Cutter. Cutters are GUI. So basically, someone in the community said, "All right, Radari 2 is great and all. It's really nice, but we want a GUI." And there's a class at 3:30. Yeah, 2 minutes. All right. It's a nice GUI. There's bindings. You want something, you add it and contribute, guys. All right.